In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Gemini's text generation API within Google Sheets to take in a list of keywords and generate an outline in a Google Doc. So I'll go over here and show you what we've built. I'm going to just click Command R to run this function, and it goes out, grabs the list of keywords in our sheet, calls the Gemini API, and let me make this a little bit more readable for you. Fetches the URL that we construct with the payload of the text to generate using this text generation API, and it will actually create an outline in a new Google Doc and generate the link within here. Pretty basic outline, but as you can see, you can do a ton of stuff with AI text generation. So I'm excited to see what you build, and let's get into how to build this project. So the first thing you need to know about getting set up with the text generation API is that an API key is required. So I will drop a link to this URL within the video description below, and you'll need a Google account in order to work with this process. I'm going to create a new API key. I'm going to associate it with a project that I have within my Google Cloud account. So I will delete this API key after this video. I've created this spreadsheet that is a good starting point, and I'm going to go to App Script within the extensions menu and get started writing our function. So you need to go to Google Cloud. If you don't have an account, you'll need to set one up, create a new project. And so within Google Cloud, go over to APIs and services and library. Search for Gemini API, and you'll need to enable this. I have it enabled already, and that's something that you should do in the setup. So back over here, I'm going to create a function called Gemini API, and I'm going to const API key equal to the API key that I just generated. I'm also going to const URL, which is the URL that we want to get from Google. So I'm going to paste in the URL from the docs, and you'll notice it has a trailing key equals, and then it actually had Google API key. I'm just going to add in the API key that we just instantiated above. I'm also going to, just for testing's sake, write what is SEO as the keyword, and const payload. So this is what the Google Gemini API for the text generation expects to have in the post in terms of a prompt. So the parts of text, I believe, text, and within this text field, I'm going to paste in generate an SEO meta description in 50 to 60 words for a page that can rank for the keyword, and then we're going to, for this test, put in this keyword that we just hard coded. I'm making this a limited result because we don't want to run this API to exhaustion and get out of credits. Actually, I need to dig into how many credits we get for free while we're testing. So we'll kind of put a limit on how many words are returned. And then I'm going to create an options object, which takes the method of post, the content type to be returned, JSON, and a payload, and we will stringify the payload that we just created above. Amazing. Now we're gonna save the response from the URL.fetchApp.fetch, where we pass in the URL that we constructed above with the API key, and then the options object that we just created here. And let me move this up the page. I'm also going to save this as Gemini text generation API. I'll rename that. I will hit Command S to save that out, and then let's handle the response. If the response gets response code is equal to 200, which is a successful response code, we're going to parse the content of that response .get content text. And then I guess let's just log out what that looks like so you can get a sense. Else we are going to logger.log error response.get response code. Okay, let's go ahead and test that out. If you see any errors, I apologize in advance, but I'm just gonna go for it. Review permissions. Continue. I trust this developer, which is myself. And amazing, it pinged the Gemini text generation API, and you can kind of get a sense for how this response is constructed. And really what we want is to get into the candidates array, get the content, the parts, that is an array as well. We want to get the first object of that, and then the text. So quite a nesting to get to the response we want. Now we know how that's constructed, and we know it's pretty deep in there. So we're going to say generated text equals content dot candidates dot content, and when that's the first item in the array, dot parts, another array, dot text. And now let's log that out. Command S to save, Command R to run, and it just outputted the text that we were looking for. We actually don't want to just log it to the console. So we need to get these keywords and output them as Google Docs. So I'm going to create a function called get keywords, and I'm actually going to modify this Gemini API slightly because we're going to pass in the keywords. And I'm going to remove this, and it will all, actually, sorry, just the keyword, not the keywords. And that will make sense in a second. So I'm going to let sheet equals spreadsheet app dot get active sheet. I'm going to let the number of rows equal sheet dot get last row. Let keywords equal sheet dot get range. So we want to start from the second row because the row of column headings we don't really want. We're going to start the first column. We're going to go for the number of rows that we have. We're going to go for one column because it's just the one column of keywords that we want. We're going to get values. And then we're going to do a for loop over those. Let I equal 0. I is less than keywords dot length. And then we're going to iterate over those, I++. So just to test this out, I'm going to do sheet.get range. And I'm going to iterate over the rows. Let me just move this down so you can see it, which calls for row, which is we're going to get the ith row, and we're going to add 2. Because we don't want the first row, and we set it at 0. We probably should have just set it at 1 and added 1, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to also create an outline call because I want to get the column of the outline, and that'll be +1. And we're going to set the keywords I, and then because they're a nested array, we're going to get the 0th item of that array. So let outline call equal sheet dot get range 1, starting from the first row, the first column. The number of rows is 1, and the number of columns is sheet dot get last column. I'm going to get those values. They are returned as a array, and an index of outline, because that's what we have here. So I'm basically telling it to put in the URL to the Google Doc in this column. Hit save. I'm going to go to get keywords, Command R, and it should populate the keywords into this column as expected. Okay, so we know that's working. That's great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a call to the Gemini API where we pass in the keywords I0 as we just did. So we know that we're passing in the string, the keyword string. We're going to create a new doc, which is going to call the document app.create, and we're going to create the title. So as you can see, the name of the document is going to be keywords I0 again. Probably could have just saved that as a variable at this point. Outline. And then we're going to, on the new doc, we're going to get the body, and we're going to set the text equal to the response. And actually, we're going to wrap that just in case. New doc dot save and close. I think that is important. And then we're going to get the URL, document app dot open by ID, new doc, get ID, and we're going to get the URL from that document. And now we're going to, instead of just replacing or adding the keyword, we're going to put the URL. Save that, Command S. Now when we run get keywords, it should call the Gemini API, build a response, and I'm actually going to modify this. We need to actually return it, and I'll return an error if I'll just say error here instead of this log. So what is SEO? So that worked, which is great. It generated an outline document, but this is like markdown. It should be bolding and making headers, but that's not ideal. So you could potentially reformat this. You could also just tailor the prompt to be a little bit more clear and actually tell it not to do that. I'm going to paste in a prompt that should help avoid that. I actually explicitly say avoid using markdown formatting. So I'm going to Command S, save that. You'll notice that it keeps adding a line in this blank. There's no keyword here, and it keeps trying to add an outline. And what that's caused from is we started num rows, and we actually want to remove one because we're not getting the first row. So we need to remove one to eliminate that error. So Command S there. I'm going to remove these just for the sake. I'm going to bring these back in. And now let's see when I run command or get keywords. it should work. Okay, so that took like less than 12 seconds. And now the outlines are being generated as expected in a pretty clean format. Obviously, it's not the best, but if you provide some examples, and there's a lot more in this API that, long context. And I'm planning on making videos on some of these other, like potentially using the Vision API to parse video content and more. So hopefully this was helpful, and I would love any feedback in the comment section below. If you run into any issues, definitely don't hesitate to ask, and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Thanks for your interest in automating your repetitive tasks.